Influence Church exists to help you know God, find freedom, discover purpose, and influence your world.
Usually I like to start with something funny. And actually today I wasn't sure if I want to start with something funny or not, because preparing my message for today, I became a little emotional. I'm going to share today some stories from living in a socialist communist country from my childhood. But I don't want you to go home all sad and crying, so here you go. A child asked his father, "How were people born?" So his father said, "Adam and Eve had babies, they grew older, and then they had babies. Now their babies grew older, and they had babies, and so on." Then child went to his mother, asked her the same question, and she told him, "We were monkeys, then we evolved to become like we are now." The kid ran to his father and was like, "Dad, you lied to me." Where the father replied, "No, I did not lie to you. Your mother was talking about her side of the family." No, I'm not going to talk about evolution versus creation today. But why I really like this story is because in school, when I was in school, I grew up with my mom telling me that we were created and God has a purpose for us and we are not coming from the monkeys. And then the teacher was trying to just explain us that we are coming from the monkeys. And why I related to this story is because I remember exactly standing up and answer the teacher, "I'm not sure about you, ma'am, but I'm not coming from the monkey." And I got in trouble, which was nothing new for my parents, because I was in trouble pretty much twice a day. But today, I want to talk about freedom and how to find true freedom. Freedom is not free, and we all know that. Either someone already paid or someone is going to pay. Either way, freedom is not free. Last couple Sunday, we learned about how much God knows us and also how we can know God. Today, I would like to just discover and try to understand more about how we can find freedom in Him. People desire to be free, but laws and regulation take away our individual freedom. Laws and rules are used by governments to control people's behavior. The goal is to make people conform to a certain standard of behavior. Rules can change a person's behavior, but not going to change our sinful nature. The same is true when people impose their religious beliefs or laws and rules on others to take away the freedom that actually we have in Christ. Christ died to set us free, so that we might live to honor Him. John 8:36, Apostle John said this, when Jesus told people who believed He was Messiah, so if the Son sets you free, you are truly free. If the Son, if God Almighty set us free, we are free indeed. And I will be honest with you, I grew up and I've been raised in a socialist communist country, and I know what lack of freedom is. But also, I'm going to share with you how people discover and found freedom during communist socialist country. So many times we are thinking that freedom is just based on outside circumstances, when actually freedom has to do with inside circumstances, or what we believe inside of us. So, I want to just show you a few pictures from Romania. There is a bus, a picture of the bus this is Romanian transportation during the communist. I don't know if you see all the slush and all the snow, and actually to go from there to the bus, you are probably needed 2 feet tall boots. The next picture is just us or different people digging for potatoes. And that's how we're collecting food. Another one is just food lines. To be able to buy food, you're supposed to just wait in line, sometimes hours, to be able to buy, not get it free, to be able to buy it. And many times, actually, we went through the line, right at the end of the line, the food was gone, was not enough. There is another picture of, actually, this is a farmer's market, that people that were farmers sell their produce. And there is a picture of communist propaganda. This one is a mix of army, navy, but also kids from first grade. We were pulled out of school and we were going on stadium to practice and rehearse for hours and days, just to be able to satisfy the dictator's ego. And there is another one where we are just walking down the street, as you can see, adults and kids, just to be able to show to the whole world how happy we are in Romania, or how happy we were during the communists. Just remember, all of those was just propaganda. All of this was just us being taken out of school for sometimes days and not be able to learn and study, just to be able to express to the world that everything is amazing in Romania. So, let's just give you a little story about me. I was born in 1975, and around 1980, actually, the Communist Party started rationed the food. By 1985, when I was 10 years old, was pretty bad. And when I'm saying that, to just make you understand that I know what not having food is. So, by 1985, actually, the government issued cards, so you are not able to buy, even if you have money, to buy any more food than was allowed on the cards. And the food actually stores were even empty. So it's not like you could go to buy, even if you are allowed to buy 200 grams of meat or half pounds of meat or anything like that. So the food store were empty. And the line outside were formed sometimes 3 to 6 hours before the food was delivered. We were allowed to buy meat only twice a month, and actually around half pound per person for a week. And sometimes we had to choose if we want to buy meat for sandwiches or meat for cooking, for mom to make a meal. You couldn't get it both. Milk. Milk was delivered once a week, and the same, you're supposed to be in line. Sometimes I was 7, 8 years old when I was going with 3, 4, 5 bottles of empty milk bottles and wait in line for 2, 3, 4 hours. You know, in the springtime or summertime, it's kind of nice, but when you have to do it in 20, 30 degrees below zero in the snowstorm or anything like that, it's now fun for a 7, 8, 10 years old kid to just be able to bring milk home. And many times we are waiting in line for 3, 4, 5 hours and not get it. Remember, we are willing to pay, we were paying for it. Milk actually was delivered out of the back of the trucks. They were not even taking the food in the store anymore. They were just, the truck was coming to a specific spot, they will open the back doors and start selling from the truck. So the communism was planning actually to develop those big food centers that I grew up in the capital, Bucharest of Romania, and they were planning to just have these big, huge food centers that they were supposed to just eliminate any small stores and just control everything from those huge stores. The dictator's idea was that if I can control the food, I can control the people. I can control the crowd. And that were they after. Water and electricity. Those were cut off pretty often during the day. And I grew up in an apartment building, 10-story. We were on the 6th floor, and our stairways going to our floor actually was in the middle of the building. No windows on sides. So when the electricity was cut, of course the elevator would not work, and then it's pitch dark going upstairs. I can tell you many, many stories that we are walking up and start counting. We are on first floor, we are on second floor. Think about it, it's dark, pitch dark, and you cannot see anything. Many, many times I ring the wrong doorbell, different people, because I was on the 5th floor or on the 7th floor instead of being on the 6th floor. I would like you to think about, we were not having cell phones, so it's not like you can turn on a light or anything like that. Sometimes mom will give us matches to keep in our backpack when we go to school, just in case if you are coming home to have something to have some light if the electricity is cut. And of course, we couldn't afford to have matches going all the way up. So we'll just keep the matches for lighting up to be sure it's our number on the door when we try to get in the house. I remember one story that actually we started leaving our door unlocked. And I went home and I opened the door, entered in the apartment, actually was not our apartment. I had to get out and go back one more floor. So water was actually cut, and you know, when it's happening in the springtime, not big deal, or summer, but when it happens in the wintertime, it's big deal because pipe freeze and so forth. We used to leave the water kind of the faucet dripping, just to be able to know, not freeze, but also to know when the water comes back on. Because the pipes were full of air, so when the water was kicking in, you could hear noises that coming out of the faucet, like, hey, water is here, go take a shower quick. And then of course, when you are growing with 8 kids in a 2-bedroom apartment, only 1 bathroom, you have to take showers quick because there are 7 more coming. And then of course, you have 1 or 2 of your brothers that take an hour to take a shower. Like, come on, dude, what are you doing? Hurry up, are others in line? Sometimes the heat actually was turned off for hours, 2, 3, 4 hours during the middle day, in the middle of the day during the winter time. We used to have a lot of blankets. We used to have a lot of, trying to keep us warm. We developed, when I grew older, around 11, 12 years old, I learned how they were cutting electricity on different circuit breakers, if you want to call it. So a whole apartment building that was having around 200, 240 apartments, they were cut electricity 1/3 of the building at a time. So then I learned how to go to the main electrical panel and move our wire, that hot wire that was going to our apartment, from one phase to another to be able to have electricity in the house. Again, we are still paying because the meter was inside the apartment, so we are still paying for it. It's not like cheating, but we're just trying to get more power in our electricity in our apartment. And you know what? When you do that at 8, 9 years old with a whole open electrical panel on 220 volts, it's kind of risky. Quite a few times I got shocked. I'm like, ouch! My mom didn't like us doing that, but I didn't like living in the dark. So sometimes we had to do what we had to do. Gasoline. Actually, the transportation that you saw earlier, that was a common way of transportation. Less than 5% in Romania had personal vehicle. Think about it, less than 5%. And that was a car for the whole family, not like each individual. But it's not just that. The transportation with personal vehicles, we were allowed or every other Sunday to travel with the personal vehicle, or on odd day or even day, depends how your license plate was. So if your license plate was ending in odd number, we were allowed to travel, use your car only on odd day or even days. But not only that, you were allowed to buy only 5 gallons of gas a week for that car. So think about how many restriction was put there, because sometimes you had one, but you don't have the other. TV. We had 2 TV stations in our country during the communists, and they were broadcasting only from 6 to 8, 2 hours in the evening. And guess what? Most of it was political propaganda. Nobody wanted to watch TV. About work, most of people were working in Romania, but in the government building, government factories, because actually the communists own all the factories. So my parents worked, and we used to have a saying in Romania, because the wages during communism was enough to just pay the utilities, pay the food, and make a living. That's it. You cannot start saving money for other things that you might want. And we used to say in Romania, government pretend to pay and we pretend to work. Everybody's happy. Not really. So against all of those circumstances, God always provided for our family. I can tell you endless story how He did provide. Sometimes through people outside the church, but most of the time through people in the church. That people came together and they were in this socialist communist country, in these circumstances, together. And they were working together. Matthew 6:33 said this: "Seek the kingdom of God above all else and live righteously, and He will give you everything you need." I can tell you many stories. I remember praying around 3, 4, 5 o'clock because we didn't know what we are going to eat for dinner. And then probably around 5:30, 6 o'clock, somebody from church came with a big bag of food for us. And experiences like this, I had multiple of them. And that's what actually helped me grow in my trust in God. Because when you don't have anything and you go to God and He provides, you know that He's the one that provided. It's not that we did it through our own strength. Some of you know this story, but I'm gonna say it. One day I went to the market. So the farmers actually were allowed to sell their veggies and produce in the market, but not the meat. All the meat, they were forced to sell it to the government, and the government will sell it, or sell it to us. So that was the meat, milk, even the bread was all controlled by the government. And then if you want just potatoes and onions and other things, you can just go to the market and buy it. I remember one day my mom, since I was probably 9, 10 years old, I did most of the shopping for my family at the farmer's market. Because farmer's market in Romania used to be negotiable. Like you talk with the farmer, hey, I'll give you $2 for this, or I'll give you $3 for that. Since I was a kid, I loved negotiating. I loved bargaining. Probably because I loved arguing with people, but I'm not sure. So my mom always tried to send me to farmer's market to do the shopping because I was bringing the most out of the best return on the money. So, and most of the time Mom would give me a list and say like, okay, I need you to go with this. Potato, onions, green pepper. And she will make a list with priorities, number 1, 2, 3, 4, and I always had to go by that list. And when I ran out of money, just forget about the bottom of the list. Well, one of those days, I got the list from Mom, and at the bottom of the list was, buy some apples for your sister. And fruit for us was a high commodity, was not affording all the time. So I went to the market, and I started my style is walk around, find a good product, because I didn't want to just buy the junk for cheap. I want to buy good product, because sometimes I learned that if you buy cheap potatoes, you throw half of them when you try to cook them. So I was trying to get so I walk around, find my targets, where I want to buy, what I want to pick, and then start negotiating. So I went around, and I start, okay, I need 2 pounds of potato, I need 1 pound of onions, and I start getting everything on that list, one by one. But was no money to buy any apples. I barely got just what mom needed for meals. I got so mad at God. I got so frustrated. I was like, and it was not for me. I know my sister, that she loves apples. She will eat the whole middle part of the apple, and just the stem hanging from the tree was left. And I got so mad at God that day. And again, I'm a little kid, I don't know too much about God, but this I know. He provided so many times for us, and today he didn't want to. And I was like, why, Lord, why? 2 apples, that's all I want, give her 2 apples. I start walking around the market, around the apple, thinking that maybe one of the farmers will just give us an apple or anything like that. Well, they needed money also, so they needed to sell them. So we start walking home around 4 or 5 blocks with bags of groceries. And the whole way home, I was so mad at God. I'm sure he was not happy with me on that day. And when we walk in the house, we have kind of an agreement. I go shopping, you guys put the stuff away when I come home, which is a bad habit I developed, and my wife still has to put the groceries away when I come home. But I put all the groceries in the kitchen, and then I walk in the living room. That day just happened for somebody from church to visit my mom, and she brought on the middle of the table in a big bowl was the biggest, greatest red apple I ever saw in my life. At that moment I realized I should not have argued with God, because he didn't provide it that way, but he provided this way. And bottom line, it's up to him how he's going to provide. So many times we are stuck in our own ways of how God should respond, or how God should meet us, or how God should provide for us. But bottom line, we need to trust him in his timing and in his ways of providing for us. Let me talk a little about the underground church in Romania. I remember many times that we were traveling, me and grandma, we used to go to prayer groups when I was 11, 12, 13. To go to a prayer group, I'm not talking about churches in the church. I'm talking about in-home prayer groups, because church was pretty good, pretty well monitored by Communist police. They even had their own party police. That actually was, Communist police had more advantages and more rights than any police or army or navy in the United States. So I remember many times we were traveling to go to one of those prayer groups with transportation, and we were changing 2, 3, 4 buses just to be able to lose our tails, because we were having people following us. And it's so amazing that we didn't realize, how in the world do they know when we go here or when we go there? How do they pick us up? How do they find us? And later on we realized that actually Communist police was trying to get the people to turn on each other. And you'll have your neighbors call on you when you are going here or when you're going there. And I was really upset the last probably a year and a half, 2 years, when I saw something like that start happening in the United States. When you start having people calling on other people that, oh, they have a party here, oh, they are meeting more than 6 people, oh, they are not wearing masks, oh, they are... That's not godly way. That's a terrible way. And the government, many times, is using all these kind of things to shape us, to make us in what we should not be, or we should not become. I'll be honest with you. I had my own concern when I started looking and seeing that happening, because something in me started remembering how it was in Romania. Please, 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 do not allow the government to change you and make you in what they need. Be sure you become who God wants you to be, who God has a purpose for you to be. I remember many times, actually, the state religion was Orthodox in Romania, which that means 97.9% was Orthodox. So we did have couple Baptist and Catholic churches, couple Reformed churches, but those were allowed to be open just for international show. Just for them to know that, yeah, religious is freedom. It's free in Romania. Many times, actually, we had even guest speakers from outside the country. And on those days, the churches were full. I remember I grew up in one of the biggest church in Romania, Pentecostal church in Romania, because actually our pastor was a teacher for some of the Austria and Germany's Bible colleges. So because of that, and because of his traveling and connections, they allow our church actually to be open. And I remember so many times that during the services, you'll have probably 600, 700, 800 people in the church, which will hold up to 3,000 seats in that church. And when an outside speaker will come into the church, the government actually will send the blood of police, communist police in civil, just regular clothes, to fill in the church. For everyone, when they will come, visit, preach in the church, then they will go out and like, oh yeah, they are great, they are amazing. And actually, they didn't know that probably 2/3 of that was just puppets, was just police in regular clothes. During the communism in Romania, communist police had the right to come and arrest somebody with no probable cause. Not even tell you why. They will just come, pick them up, and take them to the police station. And many, many times happened for those people to not come back home for 3, 5, 6, 7 months. I'm not talking hours. I'm not talking days. For months. I remember a good friend of my grandma that was Richard Voombrand. Some of you probably heard about him. He was a martyr in Romania. And I remember when he got arrested, and my grandma was telling me that for probably around 4.5 months, nobody heard about him. So you don't even dare to ask the police what happened with Mr. Richard, because you will end up being arrested. But the wife kept asking and asking and asking about her husband. And the wife being told that, like, I don't think he's alive anymore. You better just get married again. And actually, he was alive in a bunker. Many, many stories that actually communist police hurt and torture many people, especially Christians. One of my grandma's friend that actually was living 2 blocks from us used to be raided and visited by police pretty often because we were not allowed to have Bibles in our homes. And somehow they figured out that she has a Bible, but they couldn't find it. And most of the time is because she was all the time prepared to bake bread. And every time she heard or found something, she would put the Bible in a plastic bag in the middle of the dough. So when police was coming and looking through her stuff, and you know what? When police is looking through your stuff, expect to be damaged. Expect to be thrown away and have a mess to take you 2, 3, 4 days to put your house back in order. Communism, socialism that I experienced is no way of living. But again, against all of those restrictions, underground church actually was growing. It's amazing how many people were just turning to God because they realized turning to government was not a way of living. And it's amazing how people start believing and trusting God more than anything else. And slow and steady, actually, the church, underground church, was growing. Not just growing, but also learn to be there for each other, to support each other, to help each other. After years and years of oppression, lack of food, lack of freedom, people reached their limits, and we had a revolution. I had a hard time finding quality pictures of the revolution because this has been almost 30 years ago. But our couple picture I want to show you. This is how we kind of start gathering together. This is at the beginning of the revolution in the capital. The next picture is some of us on tanks. As you can see, a lot of war zone there. And the last one was towards the end when actually the dictator was on trials and executed. But let me tell you a little about the revolution. I was 14 years old, 14 and 3 months. And in our opinion, we had no option than go on the street during the revolution. Not many know that actually the revolution, Romanian revolution, started with an arrest of a pastor in Timișoara, a northern town, that was preaching little against the government and against the lack of freedom. And they tried to arrest him. And then hundreds of people came around his house to not allow the communist police to arrest him. That's how I actually started everything on December 16, 1989. After that, everything started in different cities. And December 21st started actually in the capital, where actually people, thousands of people were on the streets. No guns, no ammo, nothing except our bodies to just demonstrate against a dictator that had the army on his side, that has a communist police, that has all the guns and all the ammo. Actually, after 1 and 2 hours of demonstration, when he realized it's getting out of hand, the dictator gave the order for open fire on the crowd, for the tanks to drive through the crowd. After 2-3 days of confusion and trying to figure out which is on which side, who is on which side, army refused to. So the communist police opened fire on the demonstrations, on the people. Then 2 days later, the army was required to open fire. And then the commander-in-chief refused to open fire on the people. And at that moment, he was shot for disobeying order. And then somebody else took over, and they gave the order of open fire. After confusion, because at this moment the army was very confused, shooting or no shooting, fire or no fire. After 2 days of confusion that created a lot of victims, a lot of people dying, army sided with the people. And they refused to drive tanks through the crowd. They refused to shoot on sight. And they start turning against the communist police. That was on 23rd. And then 2 more days of really war zone. If you want to find more, go on YouTube and find Romanian Revolution. And people dying on the street in front of you. You are hiding behind the tanks. You are hiding behind vehicles. You are afraid to cross one street from one side to another because people were just falling, being shot. Communist police blew out a couple tanks, and you could see the bodies laying all over. Pictures and memories that is going to be really hard to forget. I had really hard time to forgive, but God worked on me because I realized holding on to those grudges, actually, it's lacking my freedom. It's affecting my freedom that I have. So I have to learn to forgive, but you'll never forget. Again, everything that we did was because we desire a strong lack. We had a very powerful desire of freedom. We're just fed up. We're just done with lack. Not just lack of food, but lack of anything and everything. After the revolution, freedom came in our country. But also I realized with freedom, the borders open and a lot of junk came in. During the communists, we didn't have prostitution, we didn't have a nightclub, we didn't have drugs, we didn't have some of those. When the freedom came, all of those flooded Romania. Less than a year later, I realized that actually we as a country exchanged one bondage for another. People were partying, people were feeling free, people were having fun, but not realizing that actually they were becoming slaves. Freedom. What is freedom? Is freedom being able to come and go as you please? Do or don't do as you please? Say anything you want? Is that freedom? If we go back to the beginning, we can see that God created Adam and Eve. And He put them in the garden, right? And He told them, do whatever you want. Take dominion over the earth. Eat, party. If you want to go on internet, check on Facebook. No, actually, they couldn't do that then, but they had the freedom to do whatever they want. But if you remember, God just told them, you should not eat from this tree. Did Adam and Eve had freedom? And some of us argue about that. In my opinion, they did have freedom because every morning they woke up, they had freedom to choose listening to God or not listening to God. In my opinion, freedom is the choice that we have. In communism, socialist country, we didn't have too many options. Actually, we didn't have any options except just putting up with our government. True freedom, it's showing that we have options. Basic element of freedom is right there from Genesis, from the beginning. How we are using our freedom can bring blessings or curses. Freedom has consequences. Let me tell you a quick story about my father. My dad married my mom, and 8 kids later, he felt like he needed his freedom. Actually, since they got married, he felt like he needed his own freedom. So he loved to party, he loved to drink until he was passing out, he loved to smoke, he loved to go out with other ladies, and he was free. But was he really free indeed? Actually, his freedom cost him. Eventually, he divorced my mom. They divorced each other. And his freedom, actually, what he thought is free to do, cost him probably 30, 40 years of his life. Because he died at 55 years old because of liver complication from hard liquor. Actually, the police found him dead in a park. We got notified by the morgue just because somehow in his pocket was this phone number that was our home phone number. That's how I found out about my dad dying. See, so many times we are confused about what freedom really is. He thought he was free, but actually he was in bondage. In my opinion, freedom is not out of this world. Freedom is out of this world. Because the only one who can really give us true, genuine freedom is God himself. And he is out of this world. And we need to reach out to him to receive that freedom. And when we receive that freedom, when we receive freedom from God, true, genuine freedom, doesn't matter the restrictions that are put on us. Because we know we are free. Now, we might have limitation like we had during the communists. We might be constrained to do different things or limited doing different things. But when you know you are free in your heart, when you know you are free by God, nothing else matters. Freedom of this world, in my opinion, it's self-centered and self-destructive. Just like I told you about my dad. He thought he's free, but that freedom that he had destroyed his life. And to be honest with you, almost destroyed our lives, our kids' lives, and my mom's life. And just because the freedom we experience in God, we are able to just understand that we do not have to become like him, even if we had him as a big example in our life. We understand that we have freedom of choices to become maybe like my mom or maybe like my dad. And that was actually what freedom is, when God gives us options, left and right, and choose blessings or curses, choose life or death. This world, in my opinion, provides freedom from communism, provide us freedom from socialism, provide us freedom from restriction, provide us freedom from, and you can fill in the blank. You can fill in the line. But this world freedom is just providing freedom from something. God is providing freedom not only from something, it's also providing us freedom to something. And when I'm thinking about to something, it's allowing us to have that freedom in becoming who intended us to be. Because let's be honest, when we fulfill God's purpose for us, and my lovely wife Kelly actually is going to share next Sunday about discovering purpose. When you discover God's purpose for your life, that's giving you a lot of freedom. That's giving you a lot of freedom. As I said, God is providing us freedom from slavery, from bondage, from limitation, from what other people think about us and restriction and so forth. But at the same time, he gives us a clean start to be able to pursue what he has for us. Think about an eagle. If we take an eagle and place it on a road somewhere or in a field and ask that eagle to not fly at all, You are free to do whatever you want, but only walking on the earth. Do you think that eagle will feel free? No, because his purpose is not to walk on earth. His purpose is to fly in the sky, to discover new heights. So many times we are limiting ourselves to the freedom that we think we have it around us, and not understand the freedom that God has for us and His purpose for us. Apostle Paul said this, 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 12. You say, I am allowed to do anything, but not everything is good for you. And even though I am allowed to do anything, I must not become a slave to anything. Think about it. We can be allowed to do anything, but at the same time becoming a slave to that anything, which is creating bondage in our lives. God's freedom, as I said, is more than just freedom from exterior forces, outside circumstances. We all know that we also have battles inside of us, interior. We have so many bondages that are inside of us. It has nothing to do with outside forces. And those are the most dangerous one, in my opinion. Think about so many kids that have been told by their parents that you cannot do this, you cannot do that, you cannot do this, you cannot do that, and they turn in adults thinking that they cannot do anything. Think about so many kids growing in abusive families, like myself, like my family. We could have turned out just like my dad, because that was the model we had in our life. But God freed us from that bondage to discover and find the purpose that He has on our lives. As I said, Jesus' freedom will not just free us from, but will also free us to. 2 Corinthians 3:17 is saying this. For the Lord is a spirit, and wherever the spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. My dear friend, if you really want to discover freedom, don't look at the government. They can't give you freedom because they don't have it. Only God has a true, genuine freedom, and only He is the one that can give it to us. I really encourage you to just seek freedom in the higher places. Find freedom in God. When we discover true freedom, when we experience His freedom, God's freedom, when we realize that what earth has to offer is not genuine, it's fake, when we look to Him for our true freedom, we will understand that any restrictions, any laws, any persecution or intimidation will not be able to steal our freedom from Him. His freedom wants for us to pursue His purpose for our lives. And when we discover that, when we find that, then we'll really feel free. And again, you might be in bondage, or you might think like, yeah, you know what? I start believing this lie that my parents used to say. Or I start believing this limitation that I have. Do you know how many years I struggle with me being able to preach or teach in front of people? Because English is not my first language. You have no idea how many times I've been invited before, 5, 10, 15 years ago, maybe to speak in English, or I'm like, no, I can't do that. No, I cannot do that. But you know what? when you discover that, hey, it's not gonna be perfect, it's a work in progress, I'm working on it. My wife is correcting me all the time, trying to get me better at it, which I do appreciate and I do love. But you have to understand something. Don't allow other people's mind or understanding of freedom to take your freedom away. Don't let other people can't do, won't do, limit what you are called to do. You need to trust God's purpose for your life and follow it. Psalm 118 saying this, in my distress I prayed to the Lord, and the Lord answered me and set me free. No longer slaves. I grew up with a dad that kept telling me, only stupid people go to church. I have no idea why you keep going to church. And you know what? He was an engineer actually. He was kind of smart with numbers, but he had no wisdom at all. My dear friend, God wants to give us wisdom, not just making us smart. Because it's a big difference between having wisdom and being smart. If you look in the Bible, you will never see the word be smart or he wants to make us smart. He wants to give us wisdom. Because that is above and beyond what smart can do. And the greatest wisdom that I received from a longtime friend is that he invited me to give my life to Christ. And he helped me understand that because I had a bad example in my life, I don't have to end like that. I'm not sure where you are with your walk with God. I'm not sure if you gave your life to God or not. But I would like to invite you right now to give you that opportunity that I received when I was 14 years old, to give my life to Christ. Was the best decision of my life. Was not easy, but was the best decision of my life, because I discovered true freedom. And all those obstacles, all those limitations, all those restrictions, all those can and can't do became secondary from what God actually was telling me to do. If you never gave your life to Christ, I would like to invite you to give your life to Christ right now. Anyone, everyone, please close your eyes. I would like to pray. And actually, maybe you gave your life to Christ a while back. But something happened in the last few years and that relation is not there anymore, or it's not the same anymore. I would like you to just rededicate your life to Christ and say like, Lord, I tried my own ways and I failed. I need your ways because your ways are better. If you decide, please say this prayer with me. Heavenly Father, I need you in my life. I know you can provide a better life. I know you can provide a better freedom. I know you can provide what I need in my life. I'm reaching out to you. Please save my life. Today, I give my life to you and help me grow in my relation with you. If you made that decision in this room or watching online, I would like to reach out to us through our website, or if you are in this room and you made that decision, we have a book that we would like to give you. We have that book at the back of the auditorium and it's called What's Next? And this book is going to help you grow and understand more God. If you are watching online and you give your life or rededicate your life to Christ, I would like to go on our website at influence.church and connect with us. We will love to mail you this book. Let's worship together one more song and just give praise to God because He set us free. And what He set free, it is free indeed.